Greetings, car fanatics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to fill your OEM engine mount with polyurethane so you can stiffen it up and get a little bit more performance. So I recently put some semi-solid engine mounts on my car. While I really liked the performance, there was a little bit too much noise and vibration for my liking. So I switched to some new OEM engine mounts, and then I wanted more performance, so I decided to do this mod. So let's take a look at the stock engine mount, and as you can see here, it's pretty flexible, and this is, designed for comfort and not necessarily hardcore performance, but I can flex this pretty easily. Let's go ahead and fill this with polyurethane and see how stiff this gets after we do that. Alright, car fanatics, we're going to be filling the motor mounts with two different types of polyurethane. The first is the Loctite roof and flashing polyurethane. It's about a 30 on the hardness scale. The next polyurethane we're going to be using is a 3M window weld, which is around a 60 on the hardness scale. And to give you some context, performance polyurethane mounts are anywhere between 60 to maybe 120 on the hardness scale. So what we're going to do is just reinforce the motor mount to make it slightly stiffer and give it that right balance of performance and comfort. Alright, so the first step we want to do here is just clean the inside of the engine mount, and that's just going to help the polyurethane stick a little bit better. And really it doesn't have to be that clean because the shape of the void over here that we're going to fill with polyurethane is really going to trap that polyurethane in there anyways. But let's go ahead and just give it a nice little clean. Alright, so now we're going to dry out the engine mount completely before we apply the polyurethane. Alright, now it's time to use the polyurethane to fill the engine mount. I did do one engine mount yesterday, so I have some practice doing this, and after waiting 24 hours, it's still not fully cured. I'll probably have to wait about a whole week until this really gets hard. Let's go ahead and fill this side. Alright, so I'm just going to stick the tip down in here, and I'm just going to squeeze and start filling the void. And you want to use the tip of the polyurethane to just kind of pack it down. Make sure you don't leave any air bubbles or your engine mount won't be as stiff as it could be. Alright, now what we want to do is just give this some taps because there are still some air pockets in here and we just want to work them out. All right, let's go ahead and add a little bit more polyurethane. All right, so the level of the polyurethane did go down again. Just gonna add a bit more. All right, I'm just gonna take the tip of my glove. I'm gonna smooth this out while packing in the polyurethane. All right, so let's just get everything cleaned up here. I think we're all done filling it. Just gotta take some paper towel and wipe up the excess. All right, car fanatics, so this is the motor mount filled with the Loctite, and this is the one with the window weld. Let's do a quick test of the stiffness of the two. Here's the one with the Loctite. I can still flex it with my thumb. It's still a lot stiffer than the original engine mount. Now, take a look at the one with the window weld. Definitely looks a lot uglier because it's harder to work with, but that is really stiff. The other thing that this test doesn't quite show is how much stiffer it's going to make the engine mount in the downward direction. So because you have the urethane in the void, when you mount this to the motor and you have the weight going down, it means this piece isn't going to extend as far down. And that's going to keep everything a bit tighter. And I feel like that's probably going to be the primary benefit of this one over this one, because overall, this urethane isn't very hard. It's still pretty soft, but this one is actually pretty firm. Let's go ahead and put this on and check out the results. Okay, so let's take a look at the engine mount. The engine mount is just right here. It's held on by these two 13mm bolts and then one 18mm nut on the bottom, and then you'll just have to lift up the engine and you'll be able to take these out. There's one on the other side. Now to get to this, we're going to have to remove the air box, which I'll show you how to do right now. We'll start by loosening this hose clamp over here. Next we have to remove this connector, which has a clip on the back. Just kind of squeeze it, and it should come right out. We also have a solenoid over here, which we'll just remove. Okay, and I think that should be it, and we should be able to pull the airbox out. Okay, now it's time to lift the engine just slightly. We're going to use a piece of wood to distribute the weight, and we're going to use a normal jack to jack it up just slightly. So just taking a little bit of weight off so I can take the bolts off of the engine mount over here. Okay, we got it on. Let's get this off. Okay. All right, there you go, we got it out. So now let's go ahead and take off the top 13mm bolts. Should be easy peasy. So the bolts come right on out, and we should just be able to lift up the motor mount. Got the motor mount out. The last step is simply to torque down the nut over here down to 60 foot-pounds.
Alright, now we got the engine mounts all installed. After I put on the modified engine mounts with the Loctite, I also swapped out the engine mounts with the ones I filled with the 3M window weld. Let's go ahead and do a startup test and see how the engine moves with the new engine mounts compared to the original engine mounts. Alright, now we're going to repeat a similar test, but I'm going to be putting load on the engine. I have my foot slightly on the brake, and I'm going to be releasing the clutch a little bit just to add some load to the engine, and we'll see how the engine moves around. So I did take the car out for a test drive after putting the engine mounts with the Loctite 38 polyurethane in, and it did feel a little bit improved over the stock engine mounts, and there wasn't any increase in noise, vibration, or harshness. After that, I took the engine mounts that I took off and I filled it with the 3M window weld, and then I swapped the engine mounts out. Let's go ahead and take a look at my impressions from that drive. Alright, car fanatics, so letting off the clutch here, I can already feel the car's a little bit more urgent to move. So that's a pretty good sign. I don't really notice any increased NVH just yet, but when we ring out the engine, we might hear some noise. Drop down in a second. Alright, well, just in second gear right there, I gave it gas right at 4,000 RPM, and it felt like the motor just responded a little bit better there.
give this another shot over here. Alright, so there's definitely a little bit more noise, but NVH is actually really good. I don't really notice anything different compared to the original engine mounts. Alright, car fanatics, so overall, if you're going to fill your engine mounts, I think it's a good way to increase the stiffness of your engine mounts, renew them, or just increase the performance. I wouldn't recommend using the Loctite polyurethane. This one's just a bit too soft and you probably won't notice any improvements if your engine mounts are in decent shape. I'd recommend going with the 3M window weld or something a bit harder. I really like the 3M window weld because it does give you an improvement in your throttle response and the engine just feels a bit more planted. When I take it to a track, we'll see if I actually feel a difference, but my guess is I probably will, just because engine mounts do a big part of keeping the engine in place, and that's a really important part for handling, braking, essentially everything. So if you are going to fill your engine mounts, definitely use something like the window weld or something stiffer. I definitely like this mod. It didn't add any really noticeable NVH when I'm driving around normally, and in the higher rev ranges I get slightly a little bit more noise. I'd say it's a good in between stock engine mounts and something like semi-solid Redline or other semi-solid engine mounts. Definitely a good way to do it yourself. But if you do want engine mounts like this but you don't necessarily want to do the work yourself, Function First does sell an engine mount that's filled with polyurethane in the same exact fashion. Well, thanks for watching, car fanatics. I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Leave comments or questions below.